At dawn in Querétaro, an emperor listens to rifle practice and realizes it isn't training. In 7 days, Maximilian will go from a guarded guest to a condemned man. By the end, you'll understand how Maximilian's last week in Querétaro was engineered hour by allies, enemies, and hesitant men caught between mercy and revolution. This week decides who gets to call themselves legitimate, a republic trying to survive, an empire trying to be remembered, and a man discovering that titles don't stop bullets. In Maximilian's final week, who actually controlled his fate? His captors, his rescuers, or Maximilian himself? At dawn, the air is thin and sharp. A courtyard sits under a pale sky. Boots scrape stone. A priest whispers. A man in a dark coat stands very still. His beard is trimmed. His eyes look past the rifles. He is 34 years old. His name is Maximilian. In a few minutes, shots will echo off the hills of Querétaro. But first, he asks for something small. He asks the soldiers to aim for his chest, not his face, so his mother can recognize him. A drum rolls. Someone reads a sentence out loud. The words are formal. The moment is not. And while the rifles are lifted, one thought hangs in the cold. How did an Austrian archduke end up here, about to die in Mexico? To understand this morning, we step back only 7 days. Querétaro is under siege. Streets are tense. Windows are shuttered. The city is ringed by Republican forces. Inside the lines, Maximilian's empire is already a memory. Outside, Benito Juárez's government insists there will be no mercy. Maximilian lives in the convent of La Cruz. Thick walls, echoing halls. A place built for prayer, now used for war. He is not alone. 2 generals share his fate. Miguel, Miramón, young and hard-eyed. Tomás Mejía, steady, rural, respected by the men. All 3 have been captured. All 3 have been judged. Now they wait. The city is quiet, in the way a city gets quiet when it has seen too much. Maximilian writes letters, he meets visitors, he paces, he listens for news that never comes. And every night, the same question returns. Will anyone, anywhere, stop the execution? Maximilian has lived many lives. He was born into Europe's oldest power. He grew up in palaces and ports. He liked science. He liked ships. He was charming, and he believed charm could be a kind of policy. In Austria, he was always the younger brother, not the heir, not the center. He wanted purpose. Then Mexico came into the conversations of emperors and bankers. France wanted influence in the Americas. Mexican conservatives wanted a throne to stabilize a shattered country, and Maximilian was presented with a stage, a crown. Far away. A chance to be necessary. He hesitated. He asked for proof that Mexico wanted him. He received papers. He received assurances. He also received a promise he did not fully understand, a promise that French bayonets would stand behind him. He sailed anyway. He and his wife Carlotta arrived with ceremony. Bands played. Flags rose. He believed, or chose to believe, that this was history calling. But if his empire was built on foreign support, what happens when that support walks away? Maximilian keeps writing letters as if paper can outrun a firing squad, but one message never reaches its destination. Who intercepted it, and what did they gain by keeping him ignorant? Stop thinking of this as a siege story, because Maximilian's last week is really a paperwork story, and the next document changes everything. In Mexico, Maximilian tried to rule like a reformer. He spoke of law. He spoke of modernization. He spoke of land and labor. He also signed decrees that tightened the noose around his enemies. An empire cannot be gentle when it is uncertain. Outside the capital, the Republic endured. Juárez moved his government as armies moved. He refused to vanish. He refused to concede legitimacy. The country became a map of shifting lines, town by town, ridge by ridge, and then the international weather changed. In the United States, a civil war ended. An old doctrine gained new teeth. Pressure rose against European intervention. France began to reconsider. Napoleon III measured costs, measured headline. The third measured costs, measured headline, measured the future. French troops started to leave, one unit at a time. Like planks being pulled from under a man's feet, Maximilian could have followed. He could have boarded a ship. People begged him to. Even some of his own advisors. But he stayed. Was it courage, pride, or an imital wonder scamming to me? What? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. Outside the city, people argue about saving him like it's a bargaining chip, not a life. If a rescue was possible, why did it keep arriving one day too late? When the French withdrew, Carlotta went to Europe. She went to plead. To Napoleon. To the Pope. To anyone who could send soldiers, money, recognition. She carried the empire's desperation in her hands. And something in her began to crack. Doors closed, courts smiled and delayed. Promises turned into polite refusals. Carlotta's mind slipped into fear, then into certainty of conspiracy. She drank water and thought it poisoned. She heard threats in kindness. In Rome, she broke apart. She would never return as the empress who arrived. In Mexico, Maximilian received letters, news, fragments. He was a man whose wife was falling away across an ocean and whose army was shrinking on his own soil. Friends still spoke of honor, enemies spoke of justice, and the clock kept moving. If Carlotta could not save him, who could? The guards watch him closely, yet the most dangerous person in Querétaro isn't holding a rifle. Which decision maker could end this in one signature, and why won't he do it? For a moment, the loudest sound in Querétaro isn't politics or gunfire, it's silence. And in that silence, someone makes a decision they can't undo. By the time Maximilian rode toward Querétaro, the war had tightened. This city would be his stand. A defensible position, they said. A place to regroup, a place to break the Republic's momentum. But cities are not just walls. They are supplies. They are morale. They are trust. Inside Querétaro, the imperial forces waited for relief that was uncertain. Outside, Republican commanders pressed closer. Artillery barked. Skirmishes flared. Men grew hungry. Horses grew thin. And rumors grew large. Some whispered about betrayal. Some whispered about escape. Some whispered that Maximilian was too gentle for the kind of war being fought. Yet he walked among soldiers. He spoke with them. He tried to be seen. He tried to be seen. He tried to be steady, but in war, steadiness can look like denial. As the siege deepened, one question became impossible to avoid. Would Querétaro be a fortress or a trap? Maximilian expects a trial, but the calendar is moving faster than the courtroom. Who benefits from shortening the process until there's no time left for mercy? Now we return to the last week. The capture has already happened. It came after a long siege and a final unraveling. At some point, plans collapsed. Orders confused. A gate, a hill, a night movement. A city that could not hold. Maximilian was taken, not on a throne, not in a palace, but as any defeated commander is taken. Tired, mud-stained, surrounded, brought into custody with formal respect and real finality. He was an emperor only on paper now. And paper does not stop bullets. In Querétaro, the Republic faced a decision. What do you do with a foreign prince who wore your country as a crown? Imprison him. Exile him. Trade him. The Juárez government chose the hardest answer. A military court, a trial. First trial, and in that choice, another question appears. Was this justice or political necessity dressed as justice? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. His supporters speak of honor, but their plans require him to stay calm and compliant. Were they trying to save the emperor, or to control the story of his death? The trial moves quickly. It is a court of war. It does not linger. Maximilian is accused of invading sovereignty, of sustaining a regime by force, of endorsing decrees that led to executions. The Republic's argument is simple. Mexico bled for years. It will not bleed again for the comfort of European diplomacy. Maximilian's defense reaches for legality, for intention, for the claim that he acted as a ruler, not a conqueror. He says he tried to reconcile. He says he tried to modernize. He says he tried to limit cruelty. But he cannot erase what was done in his name. He cannot erase that he accepted a crown delivered by foreign arms. Miramón and Mejía stand beside him. They are not foreigners. They are Mexican. They are also condemned. To some, they are traitors. To others, they are loyalists who chose the wrong Mexico. The sentence comes down. Death. And as ink dries, the world begins to knock at the door. Will the world's pleas matter at all? A plea for clemency can sound like strength or desperation, depending on who reads it. Which line, Maximilian's own words, made his enemies more determined to kill him. Now rewind one day, because the most important meeting happens with no witnesses, and its outcome is hidden in a single missing detail. Messages fly. Diplomats write. Monarchs appeal. Writers and artists speak up. Even those who dislike empires dislike executions. In Europe, there is outrage. In the United States, there is calculation. In the United States, there is calculation. In Mexico, there is exhaustion. Juárez is urged to commute the sentence, to show clemency, to avoid making Maximilian a martyr. But Juárez carries his own memories. Years of intervention, years of hunvention, years of humiliation. The Republic has been treated as a chessboard. Now it wants to be a nation that cannot be toyed with. Clemency, he believes, may invite the next adventurer. So the government holds. It answers politely. It delays nothing. Inside the convent, Maximilian hears of the petitions. He hears of the names. He hears of the pressure. It is a strange comfort, not because it will save him, because it proves he existed in the world. Yet every hour that passes is a kind of verdict. If the pleas fail, what does that say about Mexico's new resolve? The Republic's leaders know the world is watching, and that makes every choice heavier. If executing him risks international backlash, what fear outweighs that risk? In his cell, Maximilian tries to become orderly. He arranges his papers. He speaks with priests. He gives small gifts. He asks after his companions. He tries to make the end look like something he can manage. He also writes letters to family, letters that try to be dignified, letters that try not to sound afraid. He thinks of Carlotta, where she is, what she knows, whether she will understand, whether she will understand, whether she can understand. He thinks of Europe. He thinks of the life he left. Then, he thinks of Mexico, the villages, the soldiers, the people who cheered him once, the people who cursed him later. A strange tenderness creeps in, not forgiveness, not certainty, something softer, like regret mixed with disbelief, and in the quiet, he is visited by an idea that haunts him. If he had chosen exile when he had the chance, would any of this have happened? Quick recap, here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. One of the men around Maximilian claims to be loyal, yet every step he takes narrows the emperor's options. Is this loyalty, or a controlled demolition of the imperial cause? Here's the twist, the trial isn't the main battlefield, and the real fight is over who gets to call the execution necessary. The last week is a sequence of meetings. Some are practical, some are ceremonial, some are human. Maximilian speaks to officers. He speaks to clergy. He speaks to representatives who come to confirm details. Time becomes a corridor. Each conversation is a door closing. Miramón, fiery and proud, does not want pity. Mejía, reserved, prepares like a man who has accepted fate. The three are linked now, not by ideology, by the calendar. Maximilian asks for certain comforts. A confessor. Maximilian asks for certain comforts, a decent meal, the ability to write. He is granted some, denied others. He is allowed to dress properly, to appear as himself. There is an unspoken agreement in these moments. The Republic will kill him, but it will not humiliate him, and still, beyond the walls, a country watches. If an emperor can be shot, what does that teach future leaders about power? Maximilian starts acting less like a prisoner and more like someone preparing an ending. Is he negotiating for his life, or choosing the terms of his martyrdom? One day bleeds into the next. The city's light changes. The nights get colder. There is talk of where the execution will happen. There is talk of how many soldiers. There is talk of whether the prisoners will be blindfolded. Maximilian makes decisions about the smallest things. Which ring to give away? Which note to seal? Which servant to thank? He asks for a portrait, or perhaps he refuses one. Accounts differ, but the need is clear. To control something, anything, he is an emperor who cannot command an hour. He asks after the bodies, after burial, after the possibility of being returned to Europe. He is thinking past his own end, as if planning can outlast death. And then the notice arrives. The execution date is set. The question becomes narrower now. When the moment comes, will he face it as Maximilian the ruler, or Maximilian the man? The night before the sentence hardens, rumors spread through Querétaro like smoke. Which rumor was planted on purpose to make mercy politically impossible? Everyone talks about Maximilian's courage, but the next minute isn't about courage at all. It's about whether anyone is willing to be responsible for sparing him. The final night is restless. In the convent, corridors breathe with footsteps. Candles flare and gutter. Maximilian confesses. He receives communion. He speaks quietly, not like a commander, like someone searching for a last truthful sentence. Miramón spends time with a priest. Mejía does too. 3 men, 3 endings. Outside, soldiers prepare. Rifles are checked. A detail is chosen. Orders are repeated. In the Republic's camp, there is no celebration. There is focus. This must be done cleanly. It must be done clearly. A statement in smoke. Maximilian sleeps little. At some hour, he signs more papers. He writes one more line. Perhaps he stares at a wall until it becomes another landscape. the first hint of morning comes, and with it, footsteps that sound different. The footsteps that mean it is time. In that moment, one question presses hardest. Will the world remember his death as tragedy or as warning? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. They lead him out. There is a carriage, or perhaps a simple escort. The route is short, but it feels long. The sky is pale. Breath shows. The hill of the bells waits. Cerro de las Campanas, a name that sounds like music. A place that will become a symbol. Maximilian is composed. He wears a dark suit. He carries himself carefully, as if posture can protect dignity. Miramón and Mejía arrive too. Each man stands with his own silence. A small crowd gathers at a distance. Not a mob. Not a festival. Witnesses. History needs witnesses. A sentence is read. The words are official. The wind is not. Maximilian speaks. He declares he dies for a cause. Or he declares he dies for a cause. Or he declares he dies innocent. Different ears record different phrases. But he asks that his blood seal Mexico's peace. He gives coins to the firing squad. He asks them to aim true. And then the question becomes physical. When the rifles fire, will peace really follow? A pardon could arrive in minutes, and yet nobody moves. Who is waiting for someone else to take the blame for saving him? The order is given. The rifles rise. A brief pause stretches. Then the volley. Sound cracks open the morning. Bodies jerk. Dust lifts. And it is over, but not cleanly. Not always with one volley. Accounts speak of confusion, of extra shots, of death is never as orderly as governments imagine. Maximilian falls. So does Miramón. So does Mejía. 3 men, executed together. An empire ending beside 2 Mexican loyalties. For the soldiers, there is relief. For some, shame. For others, pride. For many, numbness. In the city, news travels fast. In the world, it travels faster. And once the emperor is dead, a new problem begins. What do you do with the body of a man who was meant to be a message? Even the execution has rules, and those rules can be bent. In the final hours, which small choice decides whether Maximilian dies as a criminal or as an emperor? Forget the emperor for a second, because the next scene belongs to the men who will fire, and one of them doesn't want to pull the trigger. The body is taken. There are official procedures. There is preservation. There are requests. There is negotiation. Because a corpse can become a flag. Mexico wants to close the chapter. Austria wants the remains. France wants distance. The United States watches. The press writes. Images spread. Sketches. Descriptions. The emperor becomes a story in ink. Maximilian's face becomes an argument. Was he a dreamer used by cynics? Was he a villain punished properly? Was he both? In Mexico, the republic solidifies. It has asserted itself. It has drawn a boundary in blood. But the act also casts a long shadow, because killing a symbol creates symbols, and symbols do not stay obedient. If Maximilian becomes a martyr in Europe, will Mexico's victory be reframed as cruelty? Quick recap. Here's what we know so far, and the one detail that still doesn't fit. Querétaro returns to daily life. Slowly, stiffly. The siege is over. The empire is over. Yet the wounds remain. Families mourn on every side. Some mourn sons who fought for the Republic. Some mourn sons who fought for the empire, and Mexico, still young in its institutions, has to govern. That is the harder work. Juárez must stitch authority back together. He must face generals who won and now expect reward. He must face regions with their own loyalties. He must face foreign creditors. The execution is supposed to end the argument. But it also hardens memories. Some will never forgive. Some will never regret. The Republic has survived. But survival is not the same as unity. And in Europe, Carlotta lives on. A living echo. If the empire is dead, why does its ghost keep walking? Maximilian's story is often told like a cautionary tale. A man who stepped into another nation's storm. A man who believed ideals could replace legitimacy. But the last week in Querétaro is more intimate than politics. It is a week of waiting, a week where the future is a war. A week where diplomacy becomes silence. A week where a person tries to make meaning out of inevitability. In that week, Maximilian is not only an emperor, he is a prisoner. A husband far from his wife, a son thinking of his mother. A ruler forced to meet the human cost of ambition. History loves clean lessons. Real life gives us mixed motives. Mexico was right to defend its sovereignty. Maximilian was wrong to accept a crown built by invasion, and still a young man died in the cold, after believing he could do good. That contradiction is what lingers. So when we hear the shots on the Hill of the Bells, we should ask one last thing. If power can make a foreign prince believe he belongs, what does it make the rest of us believe about our own choices?